Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
Eddie of Edward is truth. Why do you wait after every time I do something?
I don't know, probably because I'm just so basic when in my opening.
And I don't know where it comes from. Sure.
But yeah, we're doing Chucky. Season 1 of Chucky. The television series. This obviously came out or premiered October 17th, 2021. And both of us just got a chance to watch it for the second time. I'm assuming, yeah. So we want to talk about it, and that's going to be the episode today. So you are a huge Chucky Child's Play fan, and I am as well. I actually no. It's funny because I've grown to love it more and more over time because I feel that, like, for all of its flaws, there is not one like bad seed in this franchise. And it's funny I say bad seed because Seed of Chucky, I love that movie, but
Me too.
Yeah, there is joy to be found in every chapter, including this television series. And I don't want to make this all about the franchise. We're just going to really focus on the show, and we'll probably touch upon aspects of certain movies.
No, we have to.
Yeah, but I'm just I feel that, like, they hit this one out of the park, and especially with the trajectory of where the franchise had gone. Like, once you go straight to video or Blu-ray in this case, which they did with Curse of Chucky in 2012, that's kind of like the death knell. Like, you're just waiting for the end to come because, like, the Hellraiser movies where it's just like, now we're just putting out movies for the sake of, like, you'd expect at a certain point Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky would drop off, and they would just have generic people coming in and doing the voice, and the doll wouldn't even look the same over time. But they have kept a consistency going, and I feel that the television format, like just to tell this story, is probably the most ideal way that they could move forward, and especially like just in terms of quality, because there is a certain, when you're releasing things on Netflix or straight to video, it comes with kind of a words. It we'll just say that it's not as appetizing as a theatrical release. So I think that, like, now that it's come to television, that's sort of a way that it, like, people can digest it in a way that it feels like this feels right. This is where it belongs.
I agree, and also feel. Let me address, like, what you just said too, because I feel like, especially given the most recent movie installment, and I won't talk about it too long, with Cult of Chucky, I remember a lot of the rhetoric surrounding the discussion of that movie was kind of negative, especially from people who hadn't kept up with the movies or hadn't seen, even if they had kept up and had seen all of them up until that point. It had been, a couple of years since they had seen Curse. They didn't really remember everything that happened, and so they walked into Cult kind of feeling like, wait, what's going on? Who's that? Wait, you have to remind me where I am. And whereas somebody who's like a huge stan like I am, I knew everything that was going on. I got every reference, and it felt like a movie made just for me. But that said, I think a lot of the things that Don Mancini, who wrote and directed that movie and Curse, the last two movies, and basically, created the franchise, like, even though they heavily reworked that first screenplay for Child's Play, it's largely largely his brainchild. If anything was wrenched away from him with that first movie, he definitely reclaimed it with the films that followed and now this series.
Yeah.
But I feel like the things that he was doing in that last movie were really universe building, like kind of taking the elements that he had already kind of like put into place with almost every other film that came before, and started kind of like going, we're going to turn the wheels on as many of these as possible.
Yeah.
And that's why when I heard about the series, I was so excited, because I thought, well, you've set the perfect stage for it, because basically Cult ends with this huge question mark. It doesn't really end. It just kind of goes, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
You know? And so I was chomping at the bit for this series to debut when it finally came about.
That's
and
the thing with like the Chucky movies up like to this point, is it never feels like the end. It almost feels like the ending of Scream 4, where it's just like, like that can't be it. Like there's got to be more that you're expecting it, but just because there's such long breaks between each film. Right. By the time they do come, like I could see that disappointment in general fans, because, I think for the most part, a lot of people might have certain expectations for things, and I feel that like for me, I just love the fact that like this is a franchise that is so meticulous with its continuity that like it's never rebooted itself. It's never done. What Halloween has done now, where it's like, okay, we've rebooted it once, we've rebooted it twice, 3 times, maybe 4 times now. I did keep track of all that. But you can actually watch Child's Play from start to finish, and it's a full, like, almost 30-year or over 30-year soap opera.
Over 30 years,
at this point. And it's funny because a friend of mine was like, oh, I'm gonna check out the Chucky TV show. I'm like, oh yeah, have you seen the last movie? And he's like, no. And I think he watched the first episode. I'm like, stop everything you're doing, go back, watch the first movie, watch the second, third, fourth, and then when you're finished watching Cult, start the series. And he's like, okay, did that. And then it was just like, thank you for telling me that, because I would have been so lost had I not. But the thing is, like, it's done in a way with the television series that even if you haven't seen the movies, there's still a story there that you can follow. Like, just in terms of the new characters that, if you're being introduced to Chucky for the first time, they're just like, okay, cool. Like, I get this. Like, you're probably going to get confused when Nika shows up and all that. But I did notice when I rewatched it this past week, there's, I guess, the episode where Tiffany is reintroduced. Jennifer Tilly does the, like, previously on, and that whole bit in and of itself, like, that is a, like, part of the episode. It's not like just where you'd be like, previously on Chucky, and then just show like a bunch of clips. Like, she actually narrates it and is like in character.
Television is so exciting. I loved it. I was laughing and just my heart was beating so fast.
But I think what's so great about this is that they've really gone back to not necessarily the basics in terms of like a basic story, but the basics in terms of this is Child's Play. These are kids. I mean, they're a little bit older. They're like 13, 14. But when you look at the original, like the first 2 movies, Andy is a 6-year-old kid. And then once we started to get into, Child's Play 3, he is aged up to be in military school. But, Bride of Chucky, now we're dealing with adults. Seed of Chucky, like every movie after that, it was just like we're dealing with adults, and it got. I mean, I've never been bored of any Chucky movie, but they're definitely it got to a point where it's just like, this doesn't work as well as it did when you were actually dealing with children, and not only the fact that you're dealing with children, but you're also introducing LGBTQ characters, which I mean is nothing new for this franchise, but just in terms of like the main characters being LGBTQ, it's creates like such a so many more opportunities to tell these stories. And I was actually no, go ahead.
Sorry, and to tell them in a way that actually keeps it current, because these are stories that I don't think you couldn't. make a movie or a television series surrounding a queer 14-year-old in 1988 or even in the 90s. Really, like, I mean, as the centerpiece of as the centerpiece of the series, you couldn't. I was so gratified just watching Jake and Evan in their Devin Evans. Sorry.
Devin Evans.
I'm tired. I'm very tired. I'm sorry. I feel so embarrassed. Anyway, okay.
No, but like that's just a very like sing-songy name.
Devin Evans.
Devin Evans.
Detective Evans.
Podcaster Devin Evans.
Yes, when the two of them hack and flash with Devin Evans. When the two of them like just start like kind of like forging this. I mean, I can't even. It's a relationship, but it's also just like this bond, like this connection between the two of them, and watching it just kind of get built socially through their interactions, the way teens would interact. But there was something. I mean, when I was 14 years old, I was closeted, so watching kids that age who can actually express the feelings and acknowledge the feelings, it's not like it's easy, but the fact that you actually have prospects and you actually have options is so refreshing and so incredibly encouraging for me and for the future of any kind of like horror series that follows Chucky.
And it's funny because this like came out in the same time as like there's the I Know What You Did Last Summer television series as well, which I mean I'm not going to knock anyone who liked that, but it did feel so reductive just in terms of the genre of just doing same old but even like worse, like scaled back. Whereas like you have something like Chucky where you're not only paying respect to everything that came before it, but progressing it and doing new things with the characters. And I mean, absolutely. I do have criticisms, as always with this show. I definitely feel that it started off a lot stronger than where it finished. By the last episode. But that's not to say I was never bored. I was never like, okay, I'm tired of watching this and I don't want to see any more. Like it definitely leaves me off on a note where I'm just like, bring on season 2. I'm ready for it.
Right.
But it's certainly there was a shift. I'm not gonna like get into specific episodes. I think like for me it was like when Bree was killed. Because that was like a big event for like just in terms of like shifting the gears with the story and just especially in terms of like the junior character. But then like that same episode, because that happened in the middle of the episode, and as I was watching it too, I'm like feeling like, oh, this is a short episode, because I thought that was the end of the episode, but then like, no, we've got more. And then they have they're trying to set the trap in the house, and that's when Devin Evans' mom comes in, and then she gets killed too, and that felt so anticlimactic to me, because it's just like you already had this spectacular parental death, and then it's just like, oh, here's Devin Evans' mom, and she fell down the stairs and broke her neck, and it was just like, and that's the end of the episode. And I feel like the everything after that is just kind of like, okay, it felt like it was building up to something really grand, and it just kind of I don't want to say it flatlined for me at that point, but it just those last 2 episodes and it just like anything other than like anything to do with Tiffany and Nika, it just felt like we're just going through the motions of just trying to wrap up these stories with the kids.
Okay, I as usual I'm gonna say kind of the same thing that you did, but in a different way.
A different way. That's the theme of the cherry picker, if you haven't picked it up on that by now.
That essentially, I feel like once we cross the halfway point and we kind of know who these kids are, know they have a bond, and know, that Chucky is basically kind of targeting them, and particularly their parents, in a very kind of Elm Street feely way, which I appreciate, because we don't even really understand why yet. And that's another thing I really love about season 1 is how many things are introduced that aren't I won't say they aren't paid off because that sounds like a criticism, but they aren't answered because they'll be answered later probably.
Totally,
and
yeah.
I love that. But the thing is, I experienced the kind of going off the rails more the first time. I think it's easier to return to this series than it was for me to witness it the first time and just kind of take things as they came, because once we introduced the meat of, you know, the Chucky Tiffany dynamic, the Tiffany Nika dynamic, and even the Kyle and Andy dynamic, all of a sudden it felt like a different series, even though it was largely, you know, like you said, the continuity between like where characters are now and where we left them, all works out. It all lines up. But it's, for the series, it's great for the franchise, not so great for the season the first time I watched it. This time, the fact that I knew it was coming made me more accepting of it, and but also made me wonder, like, might this have worked out better if it happened in another season? If we just kind of like focused on the kids and just reestablished an interest, like in an essence, like a renewal of interest.
Do you mean like, do you feel like maybe Kyle and Andy were shoehorned in a little bit?
That's the thing. The first time I saw it, yes, because those characters are titans for me. Yeah. The second time, because I knew we had a limited amount of screen time watching them. I mean, even within the episodes, they have a limited amount of screen time. We just kind of know he's a little more lost than she is. She is definitely acknowledging that to him. But they're both very much in the same boat as far as like what's motivating them to stop Chucky.
Okay, we may as well just talk about these two characters. Like, we'll start with them because I have a lot to say. But before we get into that, I do want to say that, you know, when I watch, you know, I felt the same way watching this the first time as I did the second time. Like, nothing changed for me. I still love it. All the same. It was just like my perception of it. The first time and the second time was that, you know, it started off really strong and then it finished off good. Like, it was never average or below average. It was just, it definitely, you know, had a stronger premiere than where it ended, at least for me. But yeah, with the Kyle and Andy characters and dynamic, and I found this really interesting because there's a documentary or like a little feature on the Blu-ray of Don Mancini kind of going back. Like, he mentions Child's Play 2, which is where we first meet Kyle. I was going to say it's the only movie that Kyle appears in, but I think she did have a cameo at the end of Cult, which is not even on, like, it's only on like this, like the uncut
the Blu-ray
version. No, because I have the Blu-ray and it's not on that version, so it's there's different cuts of it, but anyway, this is
maybe it's Canadian.
Maybe sometimes we get fucked, but he brought up Child's Play 2, and I think he's like, you know, people really love that movie. They say that's their favorite, and I agree that Child's Play 2 is my favorite. And he's like, so we really wanted to go back to the feel of that movie, and, you know, that's why we wanted to bring back, like, not only Alex Vincent but also Christine Elise. And I feel like everything that they did with those characters, like, on the surface, it was just kind of like, it was very pandery in terms of like, here we have these characters, but when it came time to writing them, I feel that he really dropped the ball on that, because I mean, like, every scene of the two of them together, it's very exposition-y, but in a way that it's like, we're not being told new information. It's just more like, oh, do you remember that time that it was almost like we're reestablishing that this is Kyle, just in case you didn't remember who Kyle was. And it was just like, yeah, our lives, like, it's conversations that like people would never have in like real life, but on television, it's just like, yeah, we had a real tough time growing up, or like, you know, I forget exactly what they're saying while they're sitting in the car, but it's just like, I want to see, like, you know, when I think of, characters, and it's funny, I want to say this, like, I'm just thinking more like Tarantino movies where, you know, people are literally having conversations about nothing. Maybe that's more Seinfeld, but I'm just like people like revealing who their characters are without actually discussing what's happening in the movie, you know, and it's funny because when we first introduced them, it is a very like Pulp Fiction-y because you have them like coming up and like putting the guns in their pants, and they're very much like John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson in that introduction. So I just like it's funny that like once we do kind of like reconvene with them and just see like what their dynamic is, they're just like it's just like your relationship seems very boring. It's like it's so like nostalgic. Like remember when we used to like remember this, but
well,
and like a lot of like and then a lot of just like looks like knowing like yeah, and then when he locks her out and drives off, and it's just okay, like that. It never felt like it paid off in a way. It was just more like we need to make like the plot needs to happen and stupid shit like that. So I mean, that's just where I feel like they could have done a lot better with those two.
I feel like it bothered me a lot more the first time that I witnessed it because, like I said, I think these two characters are titans just because of how early they were introduced in the franchise. Like they matter. It's not that they matter more, but it's just kind of like much more of a get, you know, because they've been in less installments. Both of them, and even the installments that they're in as adults. I mean, Kyle, of course, is in, you know, like one few seconds cameo that not everybody has access to. But even Alex Vincent coming back as Andy, still very limited. Like I'm still craving more from his character. But the thing that I liked about it this particular time was in their exchanges the fact that they were talking about like him having a severed head and her just kind of like addressing it because yes, it is expositional. It's kind of like reiterating the fact that yes, that happened in Cult of Chucky, but I also like the fact that Don Mancini and Christina Leese are both using that moment for Kyle to be kind of, you know, how can I put this? Like kind of, you know, just like probing Andy's mind just to kind of get a sense of where are you?
Yeah.
Why did I find a severed head that was being tortured in your home?
She did play that really well. Like I don't like that's the thing. Like I mean, she's been acting professionally for a long time. I don't like he hasn't done anything other than Child's Play. The thing with like, I mean, obviously he's no Jamie Lee Curtis, but it's just more so just like the novelty of just like, oh, it's like the original like Andy Barclay, like that's cool. I wouldn't want it to be anyone else besides him, or you know, even especially like if they brought back what's his name from
Justin Whalen. I like Justin Whalen.
I know, but I was still like I would much more prefer.
I prefer Alex Vincent too. He's my Andy.
Yeah, but it's just but there are even things like I was very forgiving of a lot of stuff just like with his performance because I'm just like I get it. Like I don't need that much from him. My criticisms were just with the writing because it was just like I understand who this is and it's just like it's, you know, that the just being able to have him back on the screen playing this character, that's enough for me, but it wasn't enough in terms of like the meat that they gave him. Because I hear what you're saying in terms of like them being adults and being in the franchise. We didn't get a whole lot of them, or like, you know, him. I think, you know, he had just the cameo at the end of Curse, and then he did appear a bit more throughout Cult, but there was still that was kind of the leadway into the television series where we didn't really get the full gist of like what his motivation is or where he was going, like with the stuff with the head, that I feel like I would have rather, almost like going back to like Scream 5 where, you know, you don't really have a lot of Nev Campbell in that movie. I could have done with less Andy, even if he just showed up in the last episode, if the material that was written for him was a lot better than just like showing up. And, you know, even in that scene where I did like the scene where he was going around and like are your parents home, like, you know, just like kind of probing around. but even then, I feel like he was wasted a little bit. Like I don't think that he was done justice, and especially Kyle. I think that that was a big fuck you to everyone. I don't know why he did that.
Okay, those are two different things. I want to address the last one last. But just in response to your Andy thing, I do remember feeling like that because one of the things I was really craving after Cult was a lot more. I certainly got symmetry, but I think not even closure, but maybe just a little bit more explanation. And instead, the first time around, I was just getting all this other stuff, and I was just kind of like, when are we going to get to the stuff? And then when we got to the stuff, I was like, well, I just got used to this other stuff, so what are you doing? So now that I know what it is going in, I can appreciate it. And what I appreciated about how Andy was handled, because he's still a very mysterious character, but I think what Don Mancini is certainly laying the groundwork for. We'll see if it pays off in season 2 or 3 or however many seasons of these
I hope
there
it goes
are,
on
and
for
however
a
long
time.
Right, and however long Andy remains a part of this franchise. But what he has done is basically, you said he's not Jamie Lee Curtis. I think there is so much to that statement, just in the sense of like what he means within the franchise. Because
I just want to interrupt you for a second. When I say Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean just in terms of his ability as an actor. No knock against Alex Vincent. He's clearly doing what he needs to do there. But Jamie Lee Curtis, like, you know, her background and pedigree, like, you know, you put Jamie Lee Curtis in a Halloween movie, and even if it's a piece of shit, even if it's like Halloween Resurrection, and she just has to show up for like those 2 seconds to be like,
she'll deliver.
Oh, right. like I'm not afraid of you anymore, Michael, and I'm gonna show you. Like, that's like good enough for me, you know? That's what I meant by that. So I'm not saying that he's not Jamie Lee Curtis. He is Andy fucking Barkley. So that's
he is.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, what well, where was I? Fuck. Completely derailed, and now I have to get back on track. That's okay. Okay. Anyway, what I got from Andy is the fact that like it's interesting because like a lot of what we've gotten from Laurie Strode as an adult has been a lot of dysfunction and a lot of the what happens after you absorb the trauma of that first movie and maybe the sequels, depending on which timeline you're in. But with Child's Play, I feel like even though we're similarly watching how what happened to Andy at an even younger age is now affecting him as an adult. It's not even just how it's affecting him. I feel like how it's manifested within him. Chucky had this line when he and Junior are looking at Andy out the window, and he just said, and because I think Junior asked like, who is that or something, and it's just kind of like someone who never had the guts to, you know, do what it takes, or do what you got to do, something like that. Like, because he's trying to recruit Junior to make it sound like, you know, this is like what people do. Oddly enough, I think Chucky's completely off the mark and doesn't even realize how much he's made Andy like him, because that's what I feel like Kyle is responding to in that car, and anytime she's worrying about Andy is just the fact that he's not a hero, he's a very troubled man. and there's something about Alex Vincent's kind of like dry detachment, because it's like I said, it's not like this scintillating, like, you know, award-worthy performance or anything like that. But I think it works within the franchise because he seems like a character who's almost like, you know, hiding beneath many, many layers, protective layers of what reflexively what he had to like develop in, you know,
I agree.
To protect himself.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of putting it. And you know, we especially I like when we see the beginning story, to go back to Cult again, when he's on the date in the opening scene, and it's just like, you Google searched me, didn't you? And just like his just like the understanding of just like, this is my life now, you know, people are gonna fucking like, you know, I'm this mysterious character. He's a Scorpio, by the way. Birthday November 9th.
Oh wow!
Just
that
like,
explains a lot.
yeah, just being like, you know, people are gonna be probing and looking into it, like that, you know, especially when we see Kyle just being like, "What's up with you? Like, everything cool?" That I no, I like. There's definitely that. I recognize that detachment, and it works well with the performance that he's giving.
Yes.
So no issues there.
Right.
I
Now
think
to
that
address,
I just
yes.
especially going into season two, like I want to see not necessarily more from him in terms of like more screen time, but just I want to see more from Don Mancini in that regard. It's a good thing that we
Okay.
didn't have him like as a guest on here because like why'd you fuck this up?
But I think also in terms of like what's coming from him, I'm really really anxious to see, because I was really, one thing I was really fond of. It's impossible not to, especially when we're discussing these characters, not
Yeah.
to address what came before. But I really loved in Cult like his exchange with Tiffany. That's all I'll say. And just it was just on the phone, and they weren't even in the same shot together. But I adored it, and it just made me, because it just kind of like unified the franchise. I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, Tiffany and Andy, like sharing a frame, not in the same place, but so just, knowing
but just
that
having
now,
this like you're having like a character from like 1 to 3 and a character from 4 to 6 at that point now, like coalescing in the same universe, like that they exist in the same universe, but now it's like you finally get them together. No, I get
And
that. I like that. You know what I
the
want to
fact
see?
that-
What I want to see for season 2, and I don't know if it'll ever happen, is bring back Catherine Hicks. I want to see that's the biggest mystery of just like where is Karen Barkley, Andy's
I've
mom.
been waiting for her for so long, and I mean, I've seen her in interviews discuss the first movie, and she seems, to be so unabashedly like just of good spirits.
She's a
about
huge
it.
fan
Like
of it. She married the
Yes.
puppeteer on the first movie. That's where
Kevin
they met.
Yeager, yeah.
And got married and are still married. So she definitely, she's retired from acting now, as far as I know.
Yes.
But it's just like it's one of those things where I just feel like, just get her. It's like clearly she's not. If this is how many episodes Alex Vincent showed up in, like they're not gonna get her to come back and do like a full 8 episodes. Like she might have one appearance. Like the most recent we know about her is at the end of Cult Curse, when he's talking on the phone with her, just like, oh yeah, everything's good. Just it was a nice way to touch base with that character and just find out like things are good, and it sounds like she's together with Detective Mike and
Right.
and all that. So it's just like we know that she's okay. We know that she overcame the system that separated her from Andy.
And I would love Detective Mikey to come back too. Get Chris Sarandon in there. That would be great. But because neither one of them have. But
Kyle.
in reference to Kyle, what you were talking about with that, that is still the one thing I can't get over with this entire season. There's like little nitpicks here and there and little things that didn't work the first time that I'm become totally digestible now. But one thing that was not was Kyle's off-screen total happenstance elimination from the franchise. Unless, I mean, we were set up to believe that Devin and Andy and Kyle were all blown up in that house, and they said there were casualties, and then we find out that not only did Devin survive, but also Andy survived. So who knows? Maybe Kyle is still surviving, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe Christina Lee said like, "I'll come back for a handful of episodes," but maybe she's overacting
but
too.
I don't know, because she's now doing a podcast with Alex Vincent. They have like a Chucky
that's so great.
specific podcast. So clearly, like this is part of her life. Like she loves talking about it. So I don't think that she would be like, no. She's.
But acting is different.
Yeah, that's true. But I agree, because in that featurette, Don Mancini even said like, yeah, we really like Kyle and Andy, like they're the heart of this franchise, even though it was just like the one movie. We wanted to bring them back, and it's just like, well, why would you bring them back and then disrespect her like that? That to me, and I just feel like it's one of those things where you kind of just in terms of like what television is and always has been, of just that sensationalism of like, we need to kill people off, like there has to be stakes and everything. It's just like, I mean, like you could do that, but I mean, like build it up first. I mean, it's, you know, at least give us a reason to feel a sense of loss, because with Kyle being gone, like, I don't feel a sense of loss. Like, I mean, I definitely feel like a sense of loss of what could have been, but I don't feel a sense of loss in terms of just like, oh, that's really shitty. That's sad because like of this relationship that we barely got to see anything from outside of the 1990 movie. There was something I wanted to ask you about. And then we should probably move on to some different storylines.
Let me rebut a little bit off that too. Hold on one second, because I still want to say, just in terms of like how unceremoniously she was stripped out, it could have been so easily solved, since this first season is so incredibly. One of the central themes is loss, you know, and personal loss. Like Chucky is literally stripping people out of these kids' lives, and I understand if Kyle needs to die, fine. But all that needed to happen for me is literally, don't have Andy go into the house and save Devin and untie him and get him out and everything, and have her open a fucking door and be the reason for the explosion. Have her go into the house not knowing she's going to set off something, but it's not going to trigger an immediate explosion. Have it trigger a timer.
Because it does kind of make her. It does make her like seem like an idiot.
Right,
way,
or it's too normal. Like, if she's a hero, if she's a heroine, like, give her a heroine's death. And what I would have loved is if she could have saved Devin, seen that she tripped a bomb, and worked really, really hard to get him out of like a crawl window or whatever, or get them through some kind of like thing. And she gets him out, literally pushes him out to safety before she can get herself out. So that way she was a surrogate sister. She was a foster sister. She was, Andy's family, and she was like this protector. She was, basically like a facsimile babysitter. And that's what I would have loved to have seen her going down doing, is protecting another young person at the core of this franchise.
I agree.
And go down that way.
No,
that would have been great.
You're totally right. That's what should have happened. If they were to kill her. I mean, the right way to do it, to kill her.
Right.
My last question with her is, like, there's a photograph that they show twice that's on the little dash, or like the sunscreen or whatever. Who is that? Who's in that photo? Because that's her and someone else. Is it not?
It's alluded to that it's either her, lifetime partner or husband. Because he's just kind of like talking about how he never found a life, but she did, and he flips down the visor, and there's the photo, and it's just like, okay, so she found someone, and like maybe he'll be in season 2, but but all it told me was that she basically like moved on and actually managed to like put some kind of life. But she also was much older when she first encountered Chucky, and went through a lot less.
I think she's probably like 7 years older.
Yeah,
or something like, because she was
I
like,
don't mean a
17
lot,
or
but I mean
18 or.
But he first encountered Chucky when he was 6, so So
they went through a lot together. That was a really rough night.
That was a really rough night, and she had to drive Chucky around. That can't be easy.
Yeah,
but
especially when he's insulting you and just being a dick.
So what do you want to talk about now?
Since we're already talking about Chucky.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Brad Dourif.
Oh, God. The love for that man knows no bounds in my heart.
Mm-hmm. I love how he just can slip back into this role so effortlessly. Yeah. And, just seeing him now, because he's gotten up there. In years, and it's just like you see him in interviews, and you don't like get the sense of like the character in him, but that's just like the brilliance of him as an actor is like he just like goes right back in, and it's just like I'm watching Charles Lee Ray from like 1988, but like 34 years later now, or 33 years later. Just essentially like nothing has changed. He's the same person. I mean, things have changed in terms of like the trajectory of everywhere that he's gone. But there was something that was interesting, because like we do get all these flashbacks with Chucky, and I really liked those, and especially like once Tiffany shows up. But there was an interesting thing that which Jake asked him, and he's just like, "How did you get like this?" And it was almost like, the way that he interpreted it is like, oh, well, it's like, voodoo. And he's like, no, like not being an adult, because nobody's like asked him like, how did you become a killer? And I thought that was interesting because it's like, okay, we're like, this is where the series is changing things up. We're not gonna explore or like retread what we already know because we know how he became a doll, but just to actually see, was he always like this, or did something in his upbringing change him like this? So it was nice to like get those kind of the every episode just to see a new flashback of just like him as like an 8-year-old or 10 however old he is, and then as a teenager in the foster home where we find out that Eddie Caputo. Yeah, who's the his getaway driver in Child's Play 1 who betrays him.
Eddie, don't leave me, no. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I also just, it's interesting because so many questions are answered about Chucky. Like, well, where a lot of questions are raised about other characters, and that we're going to hopefully see, come in, answers come in like season 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Chucky, I got so much more insight to, and I already feel like I know him so well. But it was, I love watching him as a little boy. But this is one thing I also wanted to address is. That stood out to me really this most recent time that I watched it, and that's the psychology that Don Mancini kind of imbues that character with. And I feel like he's been doing it for a while, but never more effectively, probably, than... I mean, well, I think there's some great psychological groundwork laid in Seed of Chucky, but in Curse, when Nika addresses his, is it completion anxiety? And he even references it in in one of the episodes really early on. I think he tells Jake about it. But the fact that like Nika is a character who is the first one to really get on his nerves because she's probing his psyche and pointing out like his own kind of like psychological maladies, and it makes him want to kill her so much more, and it just amps up like everything that happens in that climactic fight. One of the things I really appreciate is watching, particularly when he's a little boy and when the killer breaks into his home, and the first person he sees is his father on the floor, already on the way out, like dying, and being stabbed by this man who has broken into their home. And it's interesting because before he even sees it, he calls out, "Dad!" And it made me think about, like, here he sees his actual father, but then he sees this character who has so much more in common with him. It's almost like, oh my God, it's almost like it's queer coding, because it's almost like if you imagine if you were like a gay kid and you saw like a gay adult and you'd never had, kind of like an interaction with somebody like that before, and you just kind of like, oh my gosh, somebody like me, except it's a murderer. And what we have in common is our bloodthirst and our ability to do this and continue on with our lives without any kind of guilt or remorse about it. And it made me feel like that character became like his paternal figure. And he even, in kind of like that child-pleasing way, when his mother comes to like, drag him into the closet to keep him safe and everything, and he grabs his little Swiss Army knife and stabs her, the killer discovers them, and she's already laying there dead.
Or I just heard you just like said closet, and I just thought like there's more queer coding of just...
Oh my gosh, totally.
But I mean, I get at the same time, that's like a horror cliche of Laurie Strode, going to hide in the closet.
Right, of course, of course.
I just thought it was funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But the fact that that he says like, I helped, and he's looking for some kind of reassurance from this guy, and the guy gives it to him. Yeah. And I felt like that guy in that moment became like his god. Like,
do you think that character will come back?
No. I think he's
served his purpose. He's probably long dead.
Yeah.
Well, what year was that? Like the 60s?
It must have been, like early 60s.
If he comes back, he'll be a very old man.
Yeah, and I don't think he needs to. His impact is living on in Chucky's legacy. But the thing is, what I got from that was then I saw Chucky recruiting these kids to try and get them to do, these killings and everything. And obviously there's a completely logical reason for it, like a magical reason for it. Because if he can get one of them to kill somebody, then all of a sudden he can create his army and his full-on cult, of Chucky. But there's also like a more of a kind of like emotional motivation behind it, I feel, because I remember Don Mancini did the same thing with him and Glenn and Glenda in Seed of Chucky. This was the way he related to his own kid, was let's go out and kill together.
Yeah.
And I just kind of feel like this character is so incredibly the same character. And I think he was not just going down a checklist and just doing what he had to meet his to kind of like get his agenda met, but I think it's also the way he relates to people.
Yeah, because totally.
It's the same thing that bonds him and Tiffany.
Yeah, if that's how he he identifies this serial killer, and it's just like this is like the person who should be my family. That would be the same way that because he does have like the guy says to him, he's like, "You got guts, kid." And he says that same line several times. Like he says it to Eddie Caputo. He says it to. I think he says it to Jake. He definitely says it to Junior. Did he say it to Caroline? I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think she had guts.
I can't remember. He said plenty of other things to Caroline too. Though. Oh my god, like she's on another frequency. But okay.
Yeah,
she's a character like I'm really interested in seeing too.
Oh god, here's the one thing, because like the first time I watched it, I just could not stand Caroline, and I still can't, because I just like once she gets into that mode of just like I want Chucky, it's just like somebody like just like grab that kid and scream at them and just be like shut the fuck up. That's what I want. That's what I wanted to see. But on the most recent rewatch, I'm just like, I think she's autistic or something. Because like
she's a little spectrum.
There's the scene in the last episode when they're in the theater, and she like everyone has been like screaming and stabbed and running out, and she's just sitting there watching the movie. She has no idea that her father's sitting next to her as a corpse, and she's just watching the movie intently. And they're just like, we got to get out of here. It's just like, but the movie, and it's just like, there's definitely spectrum-y things going on there. And it's just like, and I'm just like, okay, well, I don't, dislike her anymore for that. There's a lot of characters to dislike. I'm excited to get to the cherry picker when we do get to that. But yeah, in terms of the flashbacks, because maybe we can... segue. I did want to say of Chucky and Brad Dourif that I feel like he just keeps getting funnier. Like I don't know, like the one-liners. I think like my favorite one is when he kills the detective, and he's just like, "From the moment I saw you," I might be misquoting. He's like, "I couldn't stand like your face," or just something like that.
Right,
Sees his reflection because he's just been melted. He's like, "But hey, maybe I'm projecting."
Yes. He's crazy.
No. It's just that's why I don't like. These are horror movies, but like at the end of the day, for me, they're so comedic that it's almost like I look at these. It's just like it's like Goosebumps, but R-rated. And that's kind of how I digest it. Because a thing that I noticed. There's a lot of jump scare moments in here, like counterfeit jump scares, like where like Jake will be like putting things in his locker and then he'll close it and someone like Devin Evans will be there, and it's just like it has that like and it's like oh you scared me or something like that. I'm like, what are we like? We're in 2021 here. Like why? Like what are you doing? But it's just like I feel like. No, that's okay. Like this show can get away with it because it is kind of like built into, not necessarily like a meta nature, but just more so like you can't take anything seriously that's going on with the horror of Chucky, as much as more like the emotional drama and that it is a comedy for me. So I'd be curious to go back and especially maybe the more recent entries like. Cult and Curse, and just see like did he use a lot of those jump scare moments in those movies, because I wasn't looking out for them, but I noticed there was a lot in here, and it's like if this was something that I took more serious on a horror level, I would definitely be annoyed by that, but I'm not.
There was one jump scare that actually totally worked on me, and I loved it because it also worked on the characters. And anything that puts me in the same mind or in the same situation as the characters, I live for those moments. And it was the moment where they were all in the Wheeler house, the big expensive one. Well, I think it was during Cape Queer, that episode. Love that title, by the way. But the fact that Jake and Devin were sitting on the stairs, and they were talking about, like, you know, going on a date, and about...
They're talking about Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, they both, yes, and they both really into horror, but they're probably not going to be as scared of, like, they're not as of Pennywise and Goosebumps this year, and then all of a sudden it'll be harder to scare them, is basically like kind of like what they're kind of boasting about. Totally. And then they tied all those wires to the doll, and the doll moves, and immediately they'll and I flinched. I was like, oh shit, somebody's in the house. It totally worked on me. And there's a lot of things I think Don Mancini, I think I'll agree with you, it's not horror per se. It's horror chased with other things. I would never say it's not horror, but I would say it's horror chased with other things. And I really appreciate, I do see Don Mancini working to establish mood and to create tension effectively. Like a lot of, when people are searching for things, or when, you know, we're just kind of waiting for Chucky to show up and we don't know quite where he is, and things along those lines. I think there's plenty of moments, especially in the ones that he directs, that not so much in Seed, but in Curse and Cult, and in this series, I can definitely identify some work there. There's something that's more than just kind of like the frivolity and the fun and even the tragedy. Yeah. It's something that's just very immediate and very, very tension based that I react to.
Did you have a favorite new character?
Yeah. But I didn't know it was my favorite new character until I was a few episodes in, and then I was like, oh, I love you. And that's Lexi.
Totally.
Lexi is, I live for a Cordelia, you know, and even though she's stooped, you know, to depths that Cordelia never would, I can't imagine Cordelia mocking somebody and even donning a costume of someone's parent to make
she
fun
has better
of their
things to do with her time.
Yeah, she has better things to do.
For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, I feel like
we're talking about Buffy
the Vampire Slayer, Charisma Carpenter, Cordelia
who is
Chase,
like my bitch,
the OG bitch, reformed bitch. But no, I agree. Lexi was my... Was the character that, even if she wasn't my favorite, I will say she was my favorite, but just the one that I was the most interested in watching, because she was so complex, and there was so much depth to mine with what was going on there, because, you know, that's the thing, like, you can see, like, all these kids just like have a shitty childhood of varying degrees, but, you know, you do get a sense for who she is, and not that I ever like understand, you know, especially in the earlier episodes, why she's doing what she's doing, but when she has that turnaround, and I've heard complaints of just being like that, it happened too fast, but it's just like, no. Because her motivation is survival, and she realizes that if she has to, you know, group with these people, or at least like this person that she doesn't like, she's gonna do that, and in doing so, just realizing, like, actually, you know what, I really like you. And like the fact that she, by the end of the first season, says to him, it's just like, what about your family? And he's like, I don't have any family. And she's just like, no, I mean, like, me, like your chosen family.
You chose.
And I just like, oh, that,
love
like,
her.
Yeah, I just like, that made me choke up a little. So
and even before then, like sorry, but just like when she she's kind of, it's kind of like sealed, like she's already had her anger kind of like out at him in the hospital about him leaving the doll with her, and you know, wanting her to be killed and everything like that. And she says, I'd rather what is the line? Like I like something like I'd rather be alive than spend the rest of or I'd rather be with you and like get this done than spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder waiting to be killed by a doll, something like that.
Yeah, she's
But
very
what I
pragmatic, and I think that that's
Yeah.
a similarity to Cordelia from Buffy. It's just
Yeah.
like because she's gets to a point like in the first season of that show, she's not really like part of that group. She's
No.
just kind of on the outside, just like being snippy
Yeah.
and passing off barbs to them until like the very end when she's just like, I know what's going on in this town. I know who you are and what you can do. So I think from this point on, I'm gonna a lot like my chances of getting through high school are much greater if I just hang out with you. And that's kind of like how the relationship evolves over like the first 3 seasons that Cordelia is on that show. So
Right.
I'm interested. I'm excited to see where Lexi goes from here for sure.
And also just the fact that they seem kind of like Destiny just kind of throws Jake and Lexi in particular into the mix with each other first. They are the first fully functioning, albeit reluctant, team of the series. And nobody else has really formed some kind of like alliance, for better or worse, in the show up until then. Everybody is not communicating. Everybody is feeling either afraid or distant or stifled, or one person is craving a connection and the other person isn't craving it enough to return it. They're off pursuing something else. So the fact that like these are the two people who actually listen to each other and can speak on a level that nobody else can speak because they're the only ones, the element of disbelief too, the element of like we have only each other because nobody else will believe us that a killer doll, it's too ridiculous. And just the fact that later when they end up like going back to the house after it's burnt down and they have this exchange, Jake and Lexi, where he says, I think, I can't remember the last time I was happy. I think when we find out that he's on Effexor for anxiety and depression, he says, I can't remember the last time I was happy. And she says, neither can I. And it's not like a bonding moment. It's just kind of like a moment where they both put it on the table. But the drama is scintillating because they're arguing about what's wrong with each other, with the other one. And they just go into like Jake's crossroads where she's hanging. Here, this character who we all wanted to die. I didn't necessarily want Jake to kill her, but I wanted, I really hated her and I thought I wanted her to die. And now Jake is holding her arm and I want him to not let her go. I want him to lift her up, and I want the two of them to continue building this relationship that is already kind of like kickstarted into action. That is good fucking drama.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Don Mancini on that. Like credit where credit is due. Like if I, well, he wasn't the only writer. Okay, no, fair enough.
No, there were other writers that he co-wrote some episodes with.
Okay,
So,
all right, okay. Well, credit where credit is due all across the board. Another character I really liked, and we didn't get a whole lot from her, but when she was there, I really appreciate her, was Miss Fairchild, the science teacher, who I guess is now Jake's and Devin's like caretaker or guardian. It sort of like was hinted at the end.
Right,
but
right.
I just love that she's like this like brassy like take no shit teacher where she like literally tells like Oliver, she's like fuck off Oliver, whatever she says to him. I just I liked that because I mean like especially where this franchise has gone before with teachers like Mrs. Kettlewell, we're just like yes Chucky, like kill that bitch. We're just like no, I like here's Miss Fairchild who's like very empathetic of Jake's situation, and it sucks that like she gets framed for. I still like don't like that felt very shoehorned in, but and that was another thing. It took her out of the show for like the last half of the season. Sure. But every time she did show up, and she was just like, "There's clearly issues going on here," and like the parents aren't doing anything. That's the thing. Like the parents in this show were fucking awful, and she was like the one adult figure who was like, no, like we need to like fucking sort things out. Maybe we'll say like Bree was a sympathetic character.
And Detective Evans, I thought, was probably the most sympathetic parent.
She annoyed me a little bit, but I agree. Yeah.
But I saw her trying to protect her son and also trying to open a door for him to come out to her and everything, and I really appreciated that. Bree, I liked her. I know she was dealing with it gets revealed, she was dealing with her stage 4 cancer and everything like that. And once I knew that, I saw her with a whole new lens because I just thought she was cheating on her husband. The first
no, same. Like that was another. That's going back to just saying how this show reveals things over the course of time, because you do think like she is cheating. That's one of my favorite moments when she gets thrown out that window, or like pushed with the cleaning cart out that window, because I mean it is a very tragic demise for the character, but I just loved how everything was done, the slow motion, almost like the Hollow Man like falling down the elevator shaft, but then even Chucky just being like bye.
Right, yeah. Well, because I also align it with the cult kill with the woman who's incapacitated when they give her the I think Chucky gives her the shot, maybe, I can't remember. It's been a hot minute since I've seen the movie, but I just remember the woman who's incapacitated underneath like the skylight, and then it gets smashed. Tiffany's influence lives on, and he smashes the skylight, and she has to watch these shards of glass like falling. And it's so opulent, and it's done in slow motion, and I think there's even music playing over it like it was with Bree's death. And
also that is actress Alexa Doig, who is Friday the 13th final girl royalty. I mean, not the best chapter, but yeah, she was Rowan and Jason X.
She did it.
Yeah.
I like her better in this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that she's a Canadian actress, so they filmed Jason X in Canada, so that's how she was in that movie, right. and also Chucky was filmed in, was it Toronto or Vancouver?
I can't remember. Yeah. It is in Canada.
Six of one, half a dozen of the other.
There you go.
I'm from Toronto, so I know.
You'd know better than I would, yeah.
But yeah, I definitely that was one of my favorite moments too. That's why that was just like, that felt like an episode ender to me, and then that we went on and just kept going after.
I mean, you say that, but I also felt a strong sense of, especially returning to these episodes, I felt like every episode, sometimes it happened at the climax, but sometimes it happened earlier, but I just kind of felt like every episode has like a centerpiece, where everything is kind of like reestablished or reworked, or all of a sudden like a very like the gears shift, and all of a sudden now everything is different, and it happens here, like in the talent show is one for me. The party where everybody's wearing their headphones over at Lexi's home is another one. I love that image of just all of the kids dancing in silence with their headphones on while fires are blazing over their heads. I mean, there's so much. That's another thing I really appreciate is the way the environments are put together. I am so fond of Jake's room in his uncle's home, the other Wheelers, just because it's so incredibly angular, just like these clean lines. It felt so in alignment with like a lot of the design actually from Cult, which is another reason why I love that movie as much as I do. Just like I love the use of like a simple space and making it look so incredibly cinematic and dynamic, just with the use of like zigzag wallpaper and some very carefully placed lighting design, and the way it's shot
every environment like looked distinct from one another. And I also feel that every single one of these movies and the show as well, like, has a different look and feel to it as well. So that's the thing. That's why I love this franchise. It's just, it never feels repetitive. Even if they're trying to emulate Child's Play 2 or even the success of Child's Play 2, it doesn't look like Child's Play 2. It's like, it definitely much more contemporary, but nothing feels like we're retreading the same thing over again, like Miss Fairchild. Like, she's obviously not Mrs. Kettlewell. You have authority figures who are actually like there to help these kids rather than just
Right.
hinder them and just be cannon fodder because it's just we want them to die horribly because they're just assholes.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. I love that.
How do you feel about rumblings? I know it was going on about Miss Fairchild. People thinking that she's Glenda.
This is news to me.
Oh, really? I heard because people are saying because of the red hair and because I didn't get it the first time I watched the show, and I don't know if because they have different run times and on the Blu-ray, so I feel like we got the uncut versions of the episodes on the Blue, but this time I didn't catch anything, and then I heard it after finishing the first time going, that's ridiculous. And then I watched it again this time, and just seeing her talk to Lexi about, I know what it's like to be a bitch. I was completely self-absorbed. I was completely, like destructive or whatever the words she says to her. That was one thing that was kind of planted where I was like, well, maybe there's something to it. And then the other one was just when she's a suspect for the murders. And I think it's Detective Evans who tells her, like, you, what with your past, and your history of violence as a youth and everything.
There's something that will be in season 2 that's revealed.
Yeah.
I hope not. I don't want her to turn out to be Glenda. And that's another. Okay, so I feel like I did mention like the continuity is pretty tight throughout this franchise, but I feel that anything regarding Seed of Chucky is a little bit tenuous because they do reference Chucky's kid several times in this television series or this first season. I'm just looking up the actress Annie Briggs. She's 34 years old, so I don't even think that is just in the timeline.
Age-wise, on a timeline, it wouldn't work out. Yeah,
it wouldn't work out. But we know that at the end of Seed of Chucky, that Glenda is born into twins. So you have the persona that identifies as the male in the boy and the female in the girl. But in the show, Chucky, he says, like, I've got a queer kid. And he just says kid, like alluding to one. And then later on, Tiffany says, oh, do you like the case that has the bomb in it? It's just like, my daughter Glenda gave it to me. But then Tiffany refers to Glenda as they. So it's just like, so are we just discounting the fact that the twins were born and now it's just, there's still just the one essence of Glenn and Glenda together as one? And does that mean they're still in the doll or not? Because, and here's another inconsistency with Seed of Chucky. And I've talked about this with you before. Where... And it especially came to mind towards the end of the movie when Jennifer Tilly comes up and she's like, oh, we're giving away all these Chucky dolls and to Goodwill. And all I'm thinking is just like Jennifer Tilly was in a movie. She was filming a movie that was based on, I guess, Bride of Chucky at the time, about the killer doll. So it just made me think like, so people are already aware that there's a killer doll named Chucky out there, and Jennifer Tilly was affiliated with this movie. So it's one of those things. It's just like you're giving away a doll that was like the prop of a possessed murderer in your movie. Like it's just things like that I feel like they kind of not necessarily forgot, but they sweep under the rug when it comes to Seed of Chucky because Seed of Chucky was so meta that it was like we need to like retcon some shit.
Totally, but see, that totally works for me because it like Mayor Michelle Cross, who is one of my least favorite characters of the series so far. We'll see what happens in season 2. But when even just the fact that like she believes it would be appropriate, like how are we going to bring families together and kind of like move past all these murders and all this darkness? Let's show them Frankenstein.
No, she says it's a good old-fashioned G-rated horror family fun.
Yeah, right. I'm just like, and let's invite, actress Jennifer Tilly in to give, like, because she probably doesn't even know. I think it sets her up as just like a very out of touch, human being, period.
Are we talking about, Jennifer Tilly or
no, Mayor Michelle Cross, as a very out of touch human being.
That
period,
is
thinking like, I'm going to show them Frankenstein. I'm going to have Jennifer Tilly show up, and she's going to give them dolls from this movie she did, because they're dolls and they're kids, and everybody loves to have fun. And if maybe she's got like some misguided idea. Again, Mayor Cross. Maybe she has some misguided idea that if they have fun with the horror, then they can't like be affected by it. Like, but she deflects like nobody's business, any kind of responsibility, any kind of like
it's funny that
atonement.
She's really the only parent who survives. Everyone else's parents die, so it's almost like but I mean, like, it's you say that she's your least favorite character, like the most despicable, and totally, like, she is, but it's like at the same time, like, I love watching her. Like, I love the fact that like we have this awful bitch. She's actually the real life mother of the actress who plays Lexi. So they're mother-daughter in real life. And also Barbara Allen Woods, that's her name. She was on One Tree Hill, which I have actually seen every episode of teen show in the early
2000s.
So I enjoyed seeing her back here, because she was kind of like, she did play like sort of like a cougar mother character on that, and she looks great for someone who's like at this point 60. So I was just like, when I heard that she was cast in the show, I was already like, okay, like that's the thing, like this has a solid cast, because you got Devon Sawa, who we haven't even mentioned at this point.
There's a lot. There's a
lot. Playing twins, mind you. And actually, this is a question I had for you about Logan. Logan is the uncle,
Junior's father.
Yeah. Yes. Because at the end, when Chucky's doing his kill count, he's going through everyone, and he's like, and I think we can all agree that like this one deserved it the most, referring to Logan. And I felt like Logan, like, definitely not like a perfect kid, like you know, a very flawed parent, just like the rest of them. But I never got like a sense of him, like, especially in juxtaposition with his brother, that I'm just like, well, this is obviously the good twin. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure that he's putting on Junior and all this stuff. But I never got like the sense of him that I was just like, this is a despicable character and like, you know, the same level as his brother or Mayor Michelle, that I'm just like, you know, when he was murdered, I was just like, that ain't right. Like, that didn't seem fair.
Really?
But I can see you having a different opinion about that character. So that's why I'm interested to hear, like, what was your take on him?
Well, I don't think Chucky said he deserved it the most. I said, I think you'll all agree this one totally had it coming. I think that's what
that was what, yeah.
Yeah, which I do agree with that, given everything that he says prior to his being bludgeoned with a good guy doll. But for me, the only difference between Logan and Luke, which are I love that they're Luke and Logan. It sounds like so soap opera-y and so like campy even. Like, I mean, the fact that it was Devon Sawa and that he was playing twin brothers. Yeah. Being introduced in the first episode, I remember just thinking like, oh my god, this is camp. Like, Don Mancini is like handing us, like, you know, in the style in the tradition of like Betty Davis playing her own twin and
twice
and whatnot. Like, yeah, but there's also groundwork laid for it, because the franchise, they aren't the first twins of the franchise, because we have Glenn and Glenda.
Yeah,
but So I adored that. I was just kind of like, okay, it's laced in, it's baked in. This is going to be, and there probably will traditionally be perceivedly a good one and a bad one. It seems abundantly clear in that episode which one should be which. But I would say the biggest difference between Luke and Logan is a tax bracket, because everything that Luke did, I mean, prior to like the bullying, chased with his homophobia, like, I mean, that was where he went when he was abusing his son. Logan is hitting the whiskey just as badly. I feel like there was a tremendous parallel that was established when Jake is actually sneaking out of the house, and there's Logan laying passed out on the couch as Jake
after
is, like,
his wife has
his
just
wallet.
Allegedly killed herself, though. This is where I where I differentiate the two is that we like I look at it through the perspective of Jake, who's our main character of the show, and the way that he treats him is just like he ingratiates him into his home. Like this is like he's acting as a parental figure. He's clearly concerned about him. If anything, like there's some lines he crosses in terms of like abuse, but that's never with him. It's with Junior, who I feel is just a fucking
who's
piece
only
of
his
shit.
son.
Not only his son, but just like fucking is a. I fucking hate Junior, but just the everything he does is more. It's just very protective of Jake because it's just like the only time he acts out in that way is like when Junior is abusing his cousin, and I just feel like good for you. Like if there's a character who's a champion for the character who we're supposed to like, who's Jake in this case, then I'm all for them, and that's why I just never turned on him or just that character. Like I never got a sense from him. It was just like, oh, I don't like you. I just like
No. See, he has a son. He has a responsibility to his son, and the fact that he is continually strong-arming his son into a life of like running track, like that he is so obviously not passionate about, and just continually keeps like turning it in and just like manipulating him into a future he does not want. That is a huge.
I think that the problem with that is because I definitely see that. I get where it was going, but I think the problem is in the writing with Junior, because I don't think that they conveyed that the best that they could.
I mean, that's subjective. Like, I mean, that is totally your experience, and your response to Junior is your own. But for me, I remembered hating Junior a lot more the first time I went through the series. This time I was like, maybe the only redeeming quality for Junior with me around the time of his discovery of his mother's illness and everything like that, I was like, well, at least he loves his mother. Like I do believe
that's it. That's the only like true.
No, because
like,
then
virtuous...
later, we'll talk about Junior a little bit. Then later, when Junior at his end, in the final episode, is talking to Lexi and he's basically been like brainwashed into being a killer by Chucky. He's incredibly malleable.
I don't think
he's incredibly weak-willed.
No, I agree with that.
Easily influenced.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's standing there talking like, now I've discovered like how to be strong and we belong together because you're strong and you're a bitch and everything. So let's just be, horrible together like these people are. And she basically tells him, this is why she's my favorite character. She basically tells him like, what I loved about you was that you were the sweetest boy in the world, and that, you forgave me even when I messed up, and that you were always the good in my life, like that kind of stuff. And I love that it got to him, and I love the fact that I actually felt bad when he died. It wasn't just because Lexi felt bad. No, I legitimately welled up, because not just because Lexi had a loss.
I felt bad that I didn't feel bad. But here's why I don't like Junior, because there's just so many inconsistencies with him. Like right off the bat when we first meet him and we first see his dynamic with Jake, like he's such a little asshole to him, and
yes, he is,
and homophobic, borderline homophobic. Totally. But they get to school, and then he has this thing where when Lexi's now bullying Jake, and then they step aside, and he says to Lexi like, go easy on him, like that's my cousin. But then it's like this thing where like he can go home with Jake and then just like be a complete asshole to him, and that's fine. So it's like it's almost like you're not allowed to be rude to my cousin, but I am. And that's I don't like that. And I didn't like the fact that they weren't initially telling him about Chucky, because they're like, well, he doesn't have an imagination. That's what she says.
Yes, I love
just
that.
But when
she was right,
and when she finally does tell him, and he's just like, well, you're gonna be a fucking asshole and make up lies to me. But then you clearly see later on that like, no, they're telling the truth, and rather than going to them and being like, I'm so sorry that I didn't believe you, you're just gonna like succumb to this pressure that's not even pressure, just Chucky being like, yeah, you should kill your dad and whoever else. And not only that, but it's just like he has no allegiance to even Chucky, because once the tables are turned and kind of like Tiffany takes over, and it's just like, you're working for me now, and he's just kind of like, oh, okay. Well, so
no, because
there's just so much back and forth that you're not going to change my mind.
I think No, I'm not going to change your mind, but I am going to rebut. I'm going to say, like, with Tiffany in particular, there was that moment where she was like cutting the head off of the Chucky doll, losing her shit, and he picked up a knife and he started to go towards her, and she pulled up her knife that she was using to saw off the doll's head, and was just kind of like, no, or whatever that she said, because it was chaos at that moment, and he just kind of backs off, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know who I'm supposed to kill. And because that's who the character is. He does not know.
He just home.
He knew where his. This is why it's so interesting to me that he can look Jake in the face, because it's not true at all, but say things were just fine until you came here. And what he's saying is, my life was simpler because I knew who to listen to and who to tell me like what to do to run my life. It was my father and it was my girlfriend. And as long as I just did what I was told, everything was fine, which it was not fine. But he can't even see that. So already his lens and his sense of logic and loyalty and anything is completely fucked up. So I agree with you, it's fucked up, but I think there is a basis for it being fucked up. And also the fact that like he comes around and ultimately can kind of like display a loyalty to Lexi that feels the closest thing to love that we've seen the entire season, in his final moments when he defends her and starts stabbing the Chucky doll.
After the duration of the entire movie of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
By the way. They were back there for a while.
Yeah, no, they were. But he's definitely not among my favorite characters or anything like that. But he's not. He's not at the bottom of the barrel for me. There are plenty of other. I actually find his father much more despicable than him, because his father, I think, is responsible for a lot of his shortcomings. So
fair enough. There you go. Just because I don't want to run too long, let's talk about Nika, and then let's talk about Tiffany. Because I wanted to say with Nika, I feel that like, or just really Fiona Dourif. In general, I think that she is the MVP of this season, and not even like, and almost like a kind of a backseat one, because she's not really taking the spotlight, but she's doing so much. Like I think I counted, like she's playing 5 different roles here, because she's playing, first off, flashback Charles Lee Ray, which you know, similar to Reagan in The Exorcist. We got the voiceover from Brad Dourif. Same with Jennifer Tilly doing the voiceovers of whatever the actress is, which I love. Like it looks so awkward, but I think it's hilarious.
I love it.
So we've and I didn't even know that was her at first. So we've got her playing 80s Charles Lee Ray. She's playing Nika. She's playing Nika possessed by Chucky. She's playing Nika pretending to be possessed by Chucky. Yes. And I don't know if this is because it's hard to tell like when the possession took over, but she might also be playing Nika possessed by Chucky, pretending to be Nika when Devin Evans comes in and she's like, you got to untie me, because I don't know when the possession took over. But there's just like, how do you, as like an actor, like keep track of all of that? I mean, if you're filming the Charles Lee Ray stuff in the 80s, that's fine. But when you're playing this paraplegic or just basically there, where you have to shift gears from being like, okay, now I'm Charles Lee Ray, and like I'm gonna keep this Nika bullshit between us. And I love like even like the dynamic with Jennifer Tilly, like that, like all of that. I wanted more of that. I want, like, I feel like we've left on a place where we're gonna get more of that, but I feel so bad for her, because like they have treated her terrible. Like her entire life has essentially been ruined since before she was born, because of Chucky, because of like what he had done to her mother while she was pregnant with her, which caused her to be in a wheelchair for her life, but just like
Yes.
where she is now, where she's basically just a torso with stumps.
Yeah. She's
That-
she's quadriplegic now.
Yeah.
But I'd say there's so much to unpack time. But anyway, I adore her. I loved her just when she was introduced in Curse and she was just playing Nika, and then I saw her play Charles Lee Ray in Cult, and I was just like, damn, I didn't know you could do that, and you even resemble your father. That's amazing. And now I'm watching her full on play Charles Lee Ray, and I'm eating it up. And everything that you've said, I agree with. And on top, all I can say on top of it is she definitely got the American Horror Story treatment, more so than out of any other character, because that ending with her just sitting there screaming with her little limbless appendages just kind of like moving around as she's just recoiling in horror from like her predicament, and who wouldn't? But I love the fact that I have high hopes for her in season 2 and for her ability, because now she can't defend herself physically so much. Like she'll have to be really, really creative, and so will the writers with how they, if she ends up doing anything to defend herself physically. But what I really, really love is now she's always had her mind, and if she can remember that, that's how she got to Chucky in Curse. That's how she got him angrier than ever. I already mentioned it. But just the fact that if she can like just psychologically just kind of pick apart anyone in her wake, I think it could be fascinating if she could just make them deteriorate mentally to the point where they can't kill her or hurt her because they're too incapacitated by her mind games. I would love to see that. I'd love to see.
And it's almost at a point now where like it's almost like it would be more of a torture for her. Like, if Chucky was to go after her, that'd be like, I'm just gonna leave you be, because like you're like at this point, death will be an escape from all this. Like it's like the punishment that you have right now is more satisfying. Life with Tiffany as a quadriplegic. This
amputee.
Is okay.
Yes.
And,
oh my god.
Okay, this is what I kind of want from, because this is what I was really gathered from Tiffany this time around. Because I mean, we haven't really she briefly appeared in Curse and a little bit more in Cult, but this is the first time we really get to see her since Seed. And this is one thing that like they did carry over from Seed, where both Chucky and Tiffany did have kind of a reawakening there, where they went on their separate paths. They like realized what they wanted to do, because that's where he's like, I'm Chucky the killer doll, and I dig it, or whatever his line is, where he's just like, basically he that's where he decides like, I'm not trying to get into anyone's body anymore, even though he does go into the niece in the like in between 6 and 7 there, but he's basically like, he's got new plans. And Tiffany is just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm taking the kids and I'm going into Jennifer Tilly. I'm taking on that persona, and this is going to be my life from now on. And I much more prefer Tiffany as a human than in doll form. And that's not to say that I don't like the novelty of Tiffany the doll, but I just feel like Jennifer Tilly as an actress, she's like, it's the body language, it's like there's so much to it that there's so much nuance that's missing when she's in the Tiffany doll. And I see her now, like when we finally get to see her again after all these years of like just seeing her more, of just like eating up this role and chewing up the scenery, and I just see her like, how is this perceived to the outside world? Because you see it kind of with the real estate agent when she's like, we're moving in, and she's like, do you want my autograph? And she's like, no, I gotta go. And it's just like, this is how people view Jennifer Tilly. It's almost like she's now like the new baby Jane Hudson. It's this eccentric older lady who used to be famous. She had a career of Jennifer Tilly as an actress, and now she's completely fucking mental. And whether she's taking care of her of the wheelchair bound Nika now, just like whatever happened to Baby Jane, and they're like living in some mansion somewhere, and just that dysfunctional relationship of just like she holds all the power and she's going to abuse this poor amputee. just and
that she amputated.
But there's just and everything like with like, especially when, because she's fighting, I forget like who it was. It might have been with like the Charles Lee Ray possessed Nika, where she's just like, "Fuck you, Chucky. Hello, Chucky," to like the little doll, just like that. Which she then flips on like 2 seconds later, because like that's their dynamic. It's just like they're on and off and on and off, and that's where we get the revelation, which I didn't find as a surprise at all when it's revealed that she actually was the one that sold him out to Detective Mike. When she's like, I have some information on the Lakeshore Strangler. Here's a question for Tiffany. Were you surprised at all with kind of like the flashbacks? Because it seemed like, I mean, I didn't think that it was Tiffany. Like when we first are introduced to the bleach blonde at the bar who's like, my appetite is like a little, like just suggesting that she's going to be Tiffany, and then no, we find out that it's actually the redhead that they initially try to take home and murder.
Well, the first time I saw it, I remember feeling a little disappointed, because I actually thought he was going to go through a lot more women, climbing the ladder, as it were, before he finally met Tiffany, and there was going to be something special about her. So the fact that I remember the first time I saw it, I was completely thrown by the fact that now that she's killed with Chucky, now she talks like this. Like,
where it just comes out like in the laughter where she's like,
just after her, oh wow, is that me? I'm just like,
I wonder who that actress is who like does the physical performance of young Tiffany.
I actually looked her up on Instagram just because I wanted to get a feel for like what she looks like, and actually, in her own visage, she looks like she could be a Tilly, because she's half white, half Asian, just like Jennifer Tilly is, and she also resembles Meg Tilly a lot too. Like she just looks like she could be a member of that family. She's got very lovely pale skin and dark hair. So the only thing for me is like in her Tiffany makeup and everything like that. I wish they could have pushed the Tilly more in her face, because she really does resemble her, and I feel like the makeup kind of made her face look a little bit longer and made her look a little less like Jennifer Tilly. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. In answer to your question, I appreciated it the second time around, because I was just kind of like, I felt like I could see what Don Mancini and his team of writers were doing with that character. They were like, well, we can't have her talk like that right off the bat, because the second you hear that voice, you're gonna know that's Tiffany, and we'd rather have it be revealed. Now granted, there's a lot of other roads they could have gone to get her voice there, like Chucky could have punched her in the throat, something, anything could have happened, but maybe that's too violent, I don't know, but or maybe she screamed at him so loud that she just got permanent laryngitis. I don't know. They could have gotten a little more creative with it, but it was also, she's the more chaotic kind of like angle, or the more chaotic realm of this series, like where Tiffany goes, madness follows. So the flashbacks with Tiffany were no exception. So I just kind of embraced them. Would I have written it that way? No, but it doesn't bother me as much as Kyle's demise, off-screen death. But yeah, her demise. I do also want to say, I remember wishing that Tiffany could have been a little bit more focused the first time I went through the series, and knowing she was just going to be like chaos and like this time around. I really appreciated it the second time, the fact that she was so large, and theatrical, broad.
Well, apparently, because the scene where she goes to the wake and goes up to Logan, it's just like, I'm so sorry for your loss, that it was unscripted that she kissed him, and she just decided to do that on her, like nobody knew, and then they're just like, oh my god, we love that, like let's work it into the rest of the show.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my god, I love that. But yeah, so the fact that she seems very free and seems to I love the way she shifts gears emotionally, and I'm totally on board with you as far as her physicality. I love the fact that, like, you know, she can stand there with her, you know, hands balled up like fists and straighten her arms and bend at the waist and scream like a little girl, like, yeah, I'm hungry, and my mother told me never let a man cock block you from your food, or whatever the fuck she says. And then can also just, like, when I don't remember who Chucky wants her to kill. He wants her to kill Nika.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I'm sorry, Chucky, I can't do it. And she just immediately, like, you know, turns into just kind of like weeping, I don't know, housewife or something. I don't know. It's just a very, very kind of like feminine, just like delicate, like, I can't possibly do that. I'm going to dab the tears that are not falling from my face and excuse myself because I'm a lady. And so I love how kind of like disjointed she is, because also I realize, maybe even more than Andy, Tiffany's been through a lot, and she's been through. She's put people through a lot. She's put people through a lot, and also Chucky has put her through a lot. She has died 3 times so far at his hand. He was even talking about it in the show, like, I'm gonna kill you how many times now? 4. and I'm just thinking, like, it's taking a toll. That's why she's not as kind of like centered and as kind of like maybe stereotypical, like one single stereotype, as she would have been. Like, she seemed to be kind of like, she had like a weird kind of like a harlot with a heart of gold going in Bride of Chucky when we first got introduced to her, you know? Like, she had her own kind of moral compass. And now all of that has kind of gone to shit, and it's just kind of like, I want that! And it's, you know, she reaches for it. Yeah. And I think it makes sense. So I love the way she was
well, she's
like,
basically,
what else they do with her.
She's basically been doing his bidding for the last, whenever Seed of Chucky
coming and going,
of just being like, who, because she's like, who are we sending a package to now, or of the doll, or whatever it was that they were doing. So it's like, even though she had kind of separated from him after she became Jennifer Tilly, she's still very much, it's, you know, it's that toxic relationship where you're just like, you know, this person is bad for you and they've already fucked you over, and you're just you're abusive together, but then you somehow manage to find yourselves going back to them time and time again. And that's just what's so great about it, and just the hysteria of it, and that realization of just like never learning your lesson, but it's just like every time it happens, you just get a little crazier when it does happen, because it's just like, how have I not learned this by now? And I'm sure by season 2 they're gonna rekindle, and we do have now doll Tiffany as revealed at the very end, which, I mean, like, I'm happy to see. I'm excited for, but like I said, I do prefer Tiffany in human form. I think that's where Jennifer Tilly thrives the most. So
I even got a little bit more of a jolt just seeing Andy drive past her at the very end when he's got the truck full of dolls.
I thought he was going to run into her.
Tiffany. Yeah, I did too. But
that's what it looked like.
But he's got to get rid of these dolls.
I love the.
So
I love the line that she says to the driver. Where she's just like, it's like, you better get to these to the airport, or I'm gonna kill you. And she's like, just kidding, but not really.
Actually, no, I'm not. I love that. Also, just because we've said so little about them as characters in their own right, there's just a moment I want to pinpoint between Devin and Jake is just that I had completely forgot about, and it actually totally worked on me this time. I actually did well up and cry a little bit. I was like, oh, and it was just when Jake does the speech about like running in place. Do you ever feel like you're running in place? And and after Devin tells him to close his eyes in school, and they're standing there at like the corner of the lockers, and then Devin holds his hand, and then he opens his eyes, and they just look at each other, and then all of the students just like wander really
zoom
fast
by,
like Ray of Light style, and it's just the 2 of them. They're like the only 2 people, and they're like the only 2 people on Earth, and it was so incredibly like what I want for those characters. And then when and it worked later on me too, like after, of course, Devin pushes him away. And then when he thinks Devin is dead and he goes to his room, and then Devin just walks through, hey, and he's just like, I thought you were dead. And then he just lays a kiss on him, and then lays another kiss on him. And I'm just like, oh my God, these babies. I was so happy for them. It absolutely, like, I'm totally like gonna be heartbroken if any, and of course something's gonna happen to them because they're teenagers. No teen love lasts forever. But I'm gonna cry if they ever break up, I think. Right. Or maybe I won't, because I thought I wanted Junior to break up with Lexi, and that nothing was going to give me more satisfaction than watching him just like twist the metaphorical knife and just make her feel like nothing. And then finally, when he does break up with her, I'm sitting here going like, no, please, this is so not what she needs right now. And I'm like, look what you've done to me.
Honestly, she's better without him. But you know,
no, I know, of course, but wow, what a turnaround.
What, okay, anything you want to see specifically happen in season 2?
I want to know, how does Tiffany know Luke and Logan, and Chucky too, because here he's talking about them like they're the loser twins, and he's not just doing it to get under his skin. It's coming from somewhere. So, and also the rest of the parents too, like, is there something Elm Streety about it? Like, what is the connection? I want to know that.
We didn't mention that our Lexi's dad is the same actor who played the creepy psychiatrist in Cult. When I first saw it the first time, I was just like, is this like the same character, or is it like another twin situation? But I think you told me like, no, it's just this, they just like working with that actor apparently.
Well, he also, Don Mancini addressed that there was an actor who played one of the cops after A. Martinez in Curse of Chucky gets decapitated, and he's like handling the traffic and stuff, and I think he's the one who goes to the house, and that's the same actor as the guy who Nika hooks up with when she goes to Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, okay.
And the one who's always lying about like who he is, he's always changing his identity and stuff.
The redhead.
That's the same actor. So. Yeah. Huh?
The redhead,
the redhead. Yeah, him. So who knows? Maybe they are twins, because again, it's happened before. He's cast. There's
voodoo magic going on in this franchise that we don't know. Anyway, I think we've said all we can say about Chucky season 1. So let's get to the cherry picker. So last week, we asked you who deserves to die the most in 13 Ghosts.
Yeah.
And I said Benjamin Moss, the lawyer, and you said Kalina Orezia, who's I don't know what she is. She's like Cyrus's...
The doormat?
Yeah. Anyway, the people have spoken across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube. It is 171 for Benjamin Moss versus 222 for Kalina.
I am shocked.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
People hate her that much.
So
cool.
This is
okay.
Yeah.
People don't always hate who I hate. So
you've been on a tear, but
hey,
Vicky.
Well, maybe this will do away with everything.
Vicky Screams says Kalina, the sleazy lawyer, was just doing sleazy lawyer things. Kalina actually helped make all the ghost shit happen and brought about her own demise and Matthew Lillard's demise, which is the biggest crime of all. Mandejo says Benjamin's disregard for the ghosts and rude comments towards the angry princess absolutely gets him my vote. Hashtag I'm with her. Steve says, I couldn't bring myself to vote for Kalina because Embeth Davids will always be the sweet and loving Miss Honey to me. That's Miss Honey from Matilda.
All right. Sure.
Taz M says Kalina. Do you think she's a strong character helping them out to then become a sniveling, groveling embarrassment?
Yay! I love that.
Blue Box 87 says Kalina. She played Miss Honey in Matilda, and I like the idea of Miss Trunchbull having her revenge. Miss Trunchbull was the 13th ghost, I guess.
I guess.
or she was Cyrus. TP hoarder. Toilet paper hoarder, I guess.
Yeah,
I can't spare a square. I would pick Kalina. Benjamin got a more satisfying death for me, so did the greedy lawyer.
Okay.
Anthony DiPuzzo. Benjamin Moss. He was even a douche to the ghosts. His death was so satisfying, I cheer every time. So it seemed very mixed. And actually, the votes were in favor of Ben Moss on Instagram. So that's something I've noticed, that sometimes the Instagram votes go a different way. But
it's like the electoral college of our cherry picker system.
Basically. But it always goes towards the most votes. The
majority.
We
yes.
tabulate everything. So who deserves to die the most in Chucky?
Oh my god, I didn't expect this. Okay.
This is so unexpected. I want to thank the Academy.
No. But like, if you picked one, then I feel like I would just kind of like, I don't know, again, rebut, just kind of go like, well, what are the traits that are worse than the one you picked? But okay, because I have two that I had in mind, and I think I'm just going to go with my mind and my conscience, and you're not going to agree with me at all, so this will be really interesting. I'm going to go with Logan Wheeler. Like I said before, I think the only difference between him and his twin brother is a tax bracket, and I actually loathe Logan more because he gets more screen time, and because I feel is a more insidious father. Jake, I always had faith would be fine. He just needed to escape that house. There was no way Junior was ever going to escape the confines of the psychological traps his father set for him. And he drank and drove. I'm so tired, I can't even speak anymore. He drank and drove.
That's true, he did, yeah.
Yeah, and he also, the reason why I think Chucky's justified in saying, like, he definitely had it coming was, while he was arguing with the doll and then thusly arguing with his son told him, you're the reason Mom killed herself. And he says, no, your mom killed herself because she's weak, just like you. Now, a man who is capable of saying that to his child after he believes his wife committed suicide, I don't care how drunk you are, you're gonna die. And also, I feel better killing off Logan than I do killing off Luke, because Jake didn't even want his father dead at the end of the season when Chucky's like pushing it in his face, like, you know, I did you a favor. He's like, no, you didn't. He could have gotten better. We could have, like, all he had to do was meet my boyfriend. And it's just like, that is so gay. And then Chucky gets it. But so I think Logan is even more dangerous because on the surface of it, I think he passes as, you know, a good provider and a good paternal figure and everything like that. I think that's so much more dangerous than somebody who is so clearly in the wrong, you know.
Maybe okay.
So,
well, I agree. It didn't like completely turn me around, but I do think maybe he did have it coming. Okay. But I still look at it through the lens of just like how he treated my main character, my entryway into this show. And that is fair. And that's fine. So now I'm conflicted. Sure. Do I want to pit him against his twin brother, or do I want to pit him against the character that I do hate the most in this show? It's up to you. I did my conscience in my heart. Because I literally, for what I said before, I cannot stand Junior. I can't stand his constant abuse and the deflecting. Yeah. And the projecting and all of that just onto the one person in this movie that deserves it the least. And when you look at, like, compare things, like when Jake's father died, Junior was a fucking asshole to Jake when he had to move in. When Bree died, he was very sympathetic to him and just like, you know, like was there to support the family. And what does Junior do for it? Punches him in the face. I can't condone of that, like that, just like shitty cousins, and you go to school with him and he like literally this is someone. And also there's something that's kind of, it's glossed over because we only really see it in the first episode. There's like some kid goes up to Jake and he's just like, and I don't know if he was like wanting to like go out with Junior or something, or like he was. Because he's like, do you think you can talk to your cousin? And then he was behind there and he was just like all cocky. He's just like, I'm really flattered, but I've got a girlfriend or something, like just so like fuck you. Like you ain't that great. So all that, and I mean like, and you know, maybe this isn't a great defense because there was a lot of gaslighting on Logan's part towards there, but he did give him an out of just being like, do you like asking him like, do you really like all this stuff? Like, and that is a defense that I would make for Logan, where it's just like, you know, he at that moment, like he listened to his wife and it's just like, he doesn't want to do this. Like, you know, give him an out. Obviously he had been conditioned to a point, Junior had, where, you know, he was going to be like, what do I say to this? I don't know what to say. But still, I mean, like he extended the olive branch and he didn't take it and then continued doing playing the whole game. So I don't know. I feel like Junior's a character that is just like, you know, for the reasons that you said before, is weak and, you know, cannot do things for himself. You know, he needs to rely on other people. And, you know, the one thing that he does, like the one like autonomous thing that he reoccurringly does is abuse his cousin. And that to me is just the fact that, like, you know, he needs to be guided by everyone else in his life to do things, but he still, you know, has enough of a mind to be a piece of shit to Jake. That's why I think that he's the most deserving. And he's like super rude to Lexi. I mean, like Lexi is no peach at the beginning there, but when she actually does make the adjustments to change herself, that's when he starts to be like, I don't like you anymore. And it's almost like, what does that do to her psychologically, being like, so you liked me when I was a bitch to people, but now that I'm actually, you know, being nice to your cousin and all that stuff. So yeah, fuck Junior. And his name's Junior. His fucking name is Junior. I'm so sorry if your name is Junior. I always walk into that.
Can I just say, I knew you were going to pick him. I knew it.
Well, I knew too.
But I do have to say, Junior, as far as like characters on screen, like how I feel in the experience watching them, he is one of my least favorite characters.
But you know what? To the credit of
series.
To the credit of the actor who plays him, like kudos, like great job, like play
totally.
Briones. Kudos to you for being able to embody such a loathsome. Maybe not even loathsome, just wormy. I don't know. I wouldn't even know like the best way to describe him. Just to pull that off.
I think that like dysfunction.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that like all like the younger cast like did a really solid job here, especially since they were.
I can't wait to see them grow.
Yeah,
and just to see them grow and just develop as artists. Like I feel like it can only get better from here. But only thing I want to say, like in terms of like something you addressed with the olive branch and everything that I'm forgetting everybody's names now. That Logan extended. I think there's a huge difference between asking someone something to give them a way out, or you know, to hear the answer that, you know, that is the legitimate answer, and asking someone something just so you can say, I asked him.
Yeah.
He said no.
I agree. I agree. It's a gray area, and he definitely, like, I think that it was more so just like one of those like a Band-Aid solution. I don't know what you would call it, but just a way that he could have said like you said, like, oh, I did, you know, cover your bases and just make sure that you've done it. Because I feel that there was enough like psychological manipulation over time. But I just feel
Devin
that
Sawa plays really well.
Totally.
It's
But
terrifying.
I just feel that like but still Junior as a character, like he's just that pathetic in my mind that, you know, it's that he is that person regardless of, you know, where he's taken to, where he's guided to by the people who guide him in his life. Anyway, you can vote your heart, vote your conscience between Junior Wheeler and Logan
Wheeler. Yeah.
Battle of the Wheelers, not the twin battle we thought that we would get. So you can vote on our YouTube page in the community section, the Cherry Picker.
Yeah.
You can vote on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod, or you can vote on Patreon. And if you would like to become a supporting patron of the Cherry Picker, or just Zach Cherry is what it's under for my main YouTube channel, you will get access to these episodes relatively, like I think like 4 or 5 days. It's available the weekend before. So that's one bonus, and there's other perks to it as well. And we actually do have some new Patreon supporters that I want to shout out.
Yay!
So welcome aboard to Jamie, just Jamie, and welcome aboard to Shantae Moore.
Welcome.
So thanks for supporting us, you guys, and also thank you to Andre Felix for
Yay! Yeah, golf claps.
I would do like
Enthusiastic.
snaps, but I've never learned to. I can't do it. I can't snap.
Oh, you can't?
I can't snap my fingers. No,
Can you whistle? I can't.
I can, but I'm not going to.
Oh, okay. You're not gonna, you could whistle and I could snap.
Yeah, I'm not going to. So just a reminder to everyone: if you are listening to the Cherry Picker, you can also watch it. You can see us talking to each other and our faces on the YouTube channel, the Cherry Picker. And if you are watching the YouTube channel, you can listen to us as well, which might be more conducive for doing other stuff if you're like, you know, on the road or whatever. So the RSS feed is in the descriptions below. If you want to find either one of us on our individual social medias, where can they find you, Eddie?
I have no social media. I'm a Luddite. No, I'm at Edward is Truth, all one word. Look for me.
And that was very enthusiastic. I'm at Retro Bitchface.
I'd be happy to see you. And you're at Retro Bitchface, yes.
Yes, thank you. On Instagram, or ZachCherry8 on Twitter. And do you want to tell the lovely people what we've got going on next week? This is like my quiz for you.
Yeah, I know. I legitimately forgot. So you can tell them this week. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're doing Friday the 13th.
What is going on? Friday the 13th.
What's going on?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do the Alice confusion better than I can. So yeah, Friday the 13th part 1, because we have a Friday, I think it's the only Friday the 13th of the year coming up next week. So, yeah, I know.
I mean, yay, but
yeah, there needs to be more. I mean, whoever decides the calendars and all that, like, just tweak it a little.
Right to your congressman.
Yeah. Just to take out a day if you have to, add another one here or there, whatever you need to do. Just, we need more Friday the 13th. So we're going to take that opportunity to go over the first movie. So join us then. Until then, thank you so much for listening, and we will be right back.